All right, in this video, let's think about some of the common characteristics that viruses share that cause them to contribute to disease. So again, as we reach the end of our course, we want to think about some overarching patterns that connect the core concepts we learned about earlier in the semester with the diseases that we're learning about at the end of the semester. So again, viruses and disease. I think one of the number one details about viruses to remember is that viruses reproduce inside of cells. So this informs us about some virulence factors and some characteristics of disease that viruses cause. So first, if we know that viruses reproduce inside cells, we know, if we reflect back on the viral life cycle, that attachment and entry are critically important to getting into the cell. We talked a lot about how attachment and entry requires spike proteins, viral spike proteins. So if we look at the typical bacteriophage, we've got that viral particle attached to the outside of the cell using its tail fibers, which act as the spike proteins. That allows the virus to stick, attachment, and to deliver its genetic material into the host cell, entry. Again, none of that could happen without spike proteins. Every single virus that exists has spike proteins. They might go by different specific names depending on the type of virus or the exact identity of a virus, but every single virus has spike proteins, and every single virus absolutely requires those spike proteins for attachment and entry. So that means that we can generalize about viruses that cause disease, and we could say that their spike proteins are virulence factors. That's true for every virus. They could not cause disease without their spike proteins. So that's just a common virulence factor we can point to. If we understand that virulence factor, it might help us find treatments or preventions against that disease. So what else about viruses reproducing inside cells is an important sort of overarching theme for us as we understand diseases? Well, to me, the next thing is that our immune system has a lot of trouble detecting viruses that are inside of our cells. So every virus reproduces inside cells. That means that at points of viruses, or at points during a virus's life cycle, the virus is sort of hidden inside our cells. That hiding makes it harder for our immune system to find all the viruses and destroy them. So viruses are kind of tricky in that way. And so again, from the point of entry, when the virus exists as this prophage inside the cell, during synthesis and assembly, prior to release, all this time where the virus is only found inside our cell, it's almost impossible for our immune system to find that virus and destroy it. Our phagocytes can't do anything, our T cells can't do anything, our B cells can't do anything. The only time a virus is, or the time a virus is most susceptible to our immune defenses, is after release and before entry, when the virus is outside of cells, where our immune components, cells and antibodies, can identify that virus, destroy or inactivate it. So this is a common sort of virulence factor for every virus, the fact that they reproduce inside of cells. If we keep thinking about viral life cycles, we know that some viruses can utilize this latent life cycle, where they can remain inside a cell in this prophage form or provirus form, and only reproduce when the cell reproduces. One cell becomes two cells, and then both cells contain that virus. By performing the latent life cycle, these viruses are sort of permanently hidden inside our cells. And once again, our immune cells cannot find them and destroy them. So again, this is a sort of a trick that the virus has up its sleeve that makes it more virulent. So I would say that the latent life cycle, latency, is a virulence factor for some viruses, any virus that can perform that latent life cycle. Examples would include chickenpox, right? The chickenpox virus goes latent in some of our ganglion nerve cells, and then years and years later, our immune system knows the chickenpox virus is bad, but cannot find it and eliminate it. And then years and years later, that chickenpox virus reemerges and causes shingles. Another example might be the HIV virus, right? The HIV virus infects T cells, also goes latent, and there's a long period of dormancy before the HIV virus actively kills many of the T cells, leading to AIDS, right? That period of latency, while it's in the T cells and cannot be detected by the rest of our immune system, is part of what contributes to the progression of HIV/AIDS. So if we understand, again, this is general fact, viruses reproduce inside cells, we can start having detailed conversations about why viruses cause diseases that they do, or what characteristics of viruses are important for the diseases they cause. So what else? If we continue to think about the life cycle, and again, the fact that the viruses reproduce inside cells, we know that the end consequence of the viral life cycle is that the host cell dies. So viruses kill cells. So successful completion of the lytic life cycle kills the host cell. So again, here's a lytic life cycle for a bacteriophage. Whoops. There we go. We've got attachment and entry. We go through synthesis, assembly, and then during release, the cell lyses. For some human cells, there's a budding release of viruses, but no matter what, successful completion of the lytic life cycle kills the host cell. We know that cell death, dead cells, are damaged cells. That damages the tissue these cells are part of. And we know that tissue damage is disease, right? That's a definition we learned during the semester. So we can say that every single virus, in part, causes disease because it kills the cells it reproduces in, and it damages that tissue. And then we get signs and symptoms depending on exactly what tissue was damaged. So the lytic life cycle is a virulence factor for every single virus, right? So if we know a disease is caused by a virus, it becomes really easy to identify some virulence factors, spike proteins, the hiding or the reproduction of the virus inside the cell, the latent life cycle, if they have it, the lytic life cycle, they all have that, they're going to kill the cells. So we shouldn't lose track as we think about how and why viruses cause disease. We should not lose track of the fact that those viruses are killing the cells that they reproduce inside. That's super important. The last common theme I would point out about viruses is one that we didn't talk about earlier in the class when we talked about the viral life cycle, but I think it's one we can quickly understand. And that is that some viruses cause cancer. So concerns with certain viruses like HPV, for example, are its link to a cancer like cervical cancer. So we should be wondering, why do some viruses cause cancer? And I think that, again, there are a couple pretty simple answers. So first, some viruses are carcinogenic, or they cause carcinogenesis, and that's just the formation of cancer. But again, why? The first explanation, it just depends on, well, what is in the virus's genome? So some viral genomes encode for proteins that are not normally found in the body, and those proteins disrupt the normal human cell cycle, causing the infected cell that contains the virus to reproduce too much. Cancer is quite simply a disease of where our cells reproduce too often. We get too many cells, a tumor, and that is cancer. So again, some viruses, when they infect a cell, they just bring some extra genetic information, and they'll make a protein that accidentally or that makes the human host cell reproduce too much, and thus generating cancer. So for specific viruses, these genes have been identified, and it can be really interesting to think about what the specific genes do. But if we just take a step back and think generally about how a virus could cause cancer, one explanation is that one of its proteins disrupts the cell cycle, causing the cell to reproduce more. But there is another explanation. So we know that many viruses during their life cycle will insert their genetic material into the host cell's genetic material, and that can cause a problem. So some viruses insert their genome into the human genome, and that insertion can disrupt normal gene function. So depending on where the human genome gets sort of broken open and then the virus genome gets stuffed in, the genes that are near those breakpoints might not work correctly anymore. So by shoving in the virus genome, we can disrupt the normal function of a human gene. And that normal function might be to control how quickly cells divide. And cells might begin dividing more quickly, leading to cancer. So two basic explanations about why some viruses cause cancer. They encode a protein that disrupts the cell cycle, or they disrupt a human gene that regulates the cell cycle when they insert their genetic material into our genetic material. And that's it, right? Again, for any virus, we could identify where does it commonly insert into the genome and why does that lead to cancer? What genes are in its genome and why could those genes contribute to cancer? But let's not lose track of these simple overarching themes about viruses and their relationship to disease. So that's where I wanted to end. I hope that these simple connections to the big topics that we've discussed over the course of the semester help you understand why viruses cause the diseases that they cause. As always, if you have any questions, I hope you'll let me know, and I will talk to you again soon.